Hello people, hello fellow Nigerians, congratulations once more. It's our 62nd birthday. Every Nigerian everywhere around the world, both at home and in the diaspora, have every reason to celebrate. Thank God, here we are. After all the problems in Nigeria, here we are. I thank God for Nigeria. I know that we are going through a lot of difficulties as a people, trying to integrate ourselves into this wonderful nation given to us by God that we call Nigeria. Of course, some of us like to think of this thing as a British contraction. Sometimes I also do the same. I fall into the same trap. We all do fall into this trap. But when you look at Nigeria, I have often said that if Nigeria didn't exist, it would have to be invented. Because this is a wonderful place for Africans to thrive, for Nigerians to thrive. But, you know, when we are in a celebrated mood, we often forget some of the issues bedeviling us. And this is what I really like to get to in this particular segment. I'd like to talk about cultural baggage, integration, and survival. Now, a lot of my discourses are based on history and rationality. So when we discuss, I hope that we are utilizing our moral compasses and some of our ethical foundations. We can't leave that out of the discussion. And some of these discussions can be quite difficult. But I'm going to try to convey to you that my principal motivation is to be able to give us a better frame of mind to perceive our existential issues as we move along Nigeria. Now, I'd like to talk about cultural inhibitions and cultural inhibitors of progress. There are inhibitions to progress and inhibitors of progress, and we have a lot of that in Nigeria. As we look at our situation at the dawn of the 21st century, we see social stratification as a potential problem. Of course, some people have dreamt of every kind of utopia, even while we are going through dystopic systems, and Nigeria is not far from that. Some of us are dreaming about a revolution. And of course, at one point, a big revolutionary happened in Africa, came to Africa while Africa was going through a turmoil. And he actually said that the conditions for revolution did not exist. Of course, what he meant was that the conditions for a Marxist revolution did not exist. And as we listen to our leaders, we also hear about reforms. We've heard about reforms for a long time. And we're going through a great deal of them. But I also think that we have undergone bits of micro-revolutions in various aspects of our lives, particularly in our perception of things. And this can be provided by education. Now, I want to get at a system that we find often extremely complex when they clash on the national scene or even in the local milieu. And that is the difference between the caste system and the class system. Now, while the caste system is cultural, largely cultural and economic, the class system is principally economic, and it also impinges on culture. Now, these are also elements, if you will, of cultural baggages. A lot of us carry the cultural baggages that we had in our village back into the city and the globe at large. And this is what actually happens. For instance, in the Igbo system, where you have the Osu caste system. The Osu caste system is a form of traditional stratification in culture, whereby you have the Diala, the Osu and the Umes, or the Osume, or whatever you may have had in the past, affecting our lives in the present. That is the problem. But as a result of modern and postmodern interaction, we've also established economic classes. And you may come sometimes in contact with a low caste individual who actually becomes wealthy. And when this individual becomes wealthy, now what will come to mind? Some of them, if they have not liberated themselves from our human flaws and from some of the abominations and sacrileges of our ignorant forebears, they actually become very oppressive. So you may see in the past where the low caste individual, equivalent of the Dalit, for example, in the Indian Hindu law, becomes wealthy, and that particular Osu may actually become a member of the economic upper class and may find themselves individually oppressing a Diala, for instance, who actually is poor. And this is a problem. What we need to then get back to is the human law, and this is where Christianity comes in. Once we became Christians, the idea was to actually let everybody know that we are equal in the sight of God. And of course, the laws are supposed to treat us equally. And in countries like the United States, where they've dealt with this class system as well as a caste system, they have been able to enact laws that prohibit discrimination on the basis of race, class, cultural origin, religion, as well as even economic backgrounds. And you see that in some of their forms, they will tell you that this company or entity is an equal opportunity employer, which actually prohibits discrimination on the basis of ethnicity, religion, class, race, and so on and so forth. Now, this is not so easy in a fairly traditional society such as Nigeria, and an emerging society, so to speak, a developing nation. Some people will say underdeveloped. And of course, these things are again perceptions and can become baggages as well. Some of us believe that we are developing, some of us believe that we are underdeveloped. Depending on the context in which you use this, it may be pejorative or patronizing. But I have said earlier that somebody coming from an Usu caste, for instance, from a lower caste, is not a guarantee of poverty in the current Nigeria. Most of them can acquire high education and become even wealthier than the Diala and become upper classes. But what must happen, what must never happen, is oppression. Because once you get into that oppressive, then that becomes a question of the law. Some think that there is something to avenge, or that there has to be some kind of a revenge as a result of what transpired in the past. But these are the things that some families have had to deal with and grapple with. In my own case, for instance, there is a situation that took place, I believe, at the turn of the century, when the Christians, at the turn of last century, when the Christians arrived, and all societies were supposed to divest themselves of their Osus and their slaves and so on and so forth. In my own case, my family had to give up land, and to the point that my godmother in church came from the family of our former Osus at that particular time, and that is the truth. So sometimes when I confront these things on the social level, it's a problem, and Nigeria has to deal with it. And I remember that during the administration of Rocha Sokorocha in Imo State, there was an effort made to actually abolish this, and slavery has been abolished. Slavery as an institution has been abolished for a long time, but the vestiges of the interactions also still is a problem. and remains a problem for most of us. And these are some cultural baggages that we have to deal with. Again, there are some humanitarians that we have heard about who, even though they belong to that class, were able to transcend it economically, and they have been great humanitarians and have been a source of glory to the communities in which they have come. And these are very, very touchy and sensitive matters. And when people are talking about them, sometimes it seems as though they are being facetious about it. But almost every family in the East is a victim of this process. They either participated as the slaveholders or as the slaves themselves. But we're all in this together. And this is African development, and this is what we have to talk about. In the meantime, I say happy independence once more, victory to all Nigerians, and peace and love to everyone. May God bless everybody. May we understand that we're all human beings and that we have to live in this together. And on that, happy independence, everyone. Thank you.